So today we're going to be covering 3 chapters. I'll be doing the first 2. I'll be doing the UI changes dynamically, and I'll be doing the start menus. And then we're going to have a guest join us, Lisa Childress, another instructor here at 4Js, and she's going to be walking through the Web Components chapter for you. So welcome, Lisa. You won't get to hear from her until after our break, but she will be talking to us about the Web Components at that time. Changing the UI dynamically. What we're going to be doing at the end of this module is we're going to be just using a bunch of Genero methods to go in there and work with the objects that are making up our AUI tree. So you're going to find out how you can reference an object, how you can dynamically change an attribute to a form item, how you can load your UI components, like load your toolbars and top menus, action defaults, style files, start menus, how you can dynamically or programmatically load a combo box with data, how you enable and disable, hide and show, make visible different types of fields, and then some basic stuff about working out there with the interface, how to load XML files, how to refresh the interface, and how to identify the client. And the entire purpose of this chapter is saying your application is up and running, you've created your form, you've launched your form, or you've launched your window with a form in it, and now you want to change it on the fly. So it's no longer residing on the form definition file. You want to change it programmatically. How do you get about there to do it? And that's what the things you're going to learn today. So first off, the classes that we're largely going to talk about today are classes from the UI class, or methods from the UI class, or UI package, and methods from the om package. They gave a subset here. The one that we are not going to talk about in this section, but I added it to the slide, was just UI drag drop. That was added on, and that gives you the ability to do drag drop programming. We don't teach it in this class. We will have a module on this put up onto our website soon, a self-paced training video about this. I also uploaded into your materials section the PDF of the slides that we have used to teach this in other courses. So I realize I'm not going to be covering this UI drag drop here today. You will, I've given you materials so that you can read up on it yourself. What we will be looking at today are 5 of the classes from the UI package, the interface, window, form, dialog we covered yesterday, and the ComboBox class. We're also going to look at a couple from the om class, DOM document and DomNode being the 2 main ones, and we're going to talk about the other ones that exist as well. So the first slide they have out here introduces us to some of the ui.Interface class. ui.Interface class is all comprised of class methods. That means I don't have to define a ui.Interface variable. I don't have to get a handle on an object. You have one user interface. You have one UI. We know what it is. So whenever you're going to use any of these methods, you're just going to call ui.Interface and then provide the method name. The first slide that we have up here is showing you the 5 methods we use to load the 5 resource file types that you can have for your user interface. So we can load a start menu, we can load a toolbar, we can load a top menu, action defaults, and styles file. When you're using for each of these, you're going to provide a file name. You don't have to provide the extension. We expect the start menu to have, for example, a .4sm extension. We expect a toolbar to have a .4tb extension. So you can just put the file name in quotes without the extension on it. And if you do this, it's loading up the toolbar or the top menu or the start menu or the action default for your application. So it's loading it up for the interface. You'll notice that there's no path mentioned in any of these. I just list the file name. It's going to go and it's going to do its typical path search. It'll look inside the current directory, and if it's not in the current directory, it's going to go off and look along the path list that's defined by your DB path or your FGO resource path environment variables. Here they gave some examples of other UI interface methods. If you want to force a refresh to the client AUI tree, I would do a call ui.Interface.refresh. If I wanted to identify the client that I'm on, are you on GDC or are you on GWC? What is the front end? What is the client? You could do the call ui.Interface.getFrontEndNamed and have it return a string. This would be a method that you may want to use if you have to have code that's going to be specific depending upon what your client is. Next one, you want to return the title of a program. You could do the call ui.Interface.getText method. These are just 3 examples. I want to point out that there are a whole series of different ui.Interface methods out there. If I go into my business development guide, I look down at extending the I look down at library reference. There's built-in packages. So we're talking about the UI package, and we're talking about the interface class. And here we can have a list of the interface methods. If I expand the list, you can see that we have a whole series of interface methods out there. Let me scroll it up a bit. Some of them are pretty easy to understand: get name, set text, set image, get image. Those are pretty self-explanatory as far as what they can kind of do. We're going to see some with start menus, set containers. We have our load actions that we've seen down here. We have get front end name, get front end version. So there are a variety of different user interface methods out here. Go ahead and read through these, identify when it is you think you may want to use them. Often, if you need to use one, for example, we do the front call sometimes with some of our web work. We'll give you examples that show you how these need to be used. So that's the UI interface class. It deals with the interface, and they're all class methods. When we get into the Windows class, this is where we're going to have some class methods and some object methods. When you have the class methods, that's when you give it the full path, so ui.Window.getCurrent in the example that we see here. And typically when we get to the window and the form, etc., you're using a class method in order to get a reference to a window object in this case. So right here I've shown you 2 examples of how to define and get a window object, get a handle on a window that you have out there. So the first one, both of them start with the define a variable, define w, as ui.Window. And that's setting up the variable that we're going to use to hold this reference to our object. The next one is saying I want to get the current window. I want to get the window that I'm currently in. I let w equal to ui.Window.getCurrent. And at that point, I have a handle on that window object, and I can use object methods for that window. If you had multiple windows out there and you weren't sure, you didn't want the current window, but you wanted a variable set to get a window that you have already assigned a specific name, you can use the next method, which is let w equal to ui.Window.ForName, and inside of the quotes, you give the name of that window, and that would have been the window name you assigned when you did your open window, window name with form name. Just wanted to point out, when you print out or if you look at the PDFs that I sent you, there's a third way that they give you at the bottom of page 6. And this is a way to get the current window that's using the ui.Interface class. They provide it for you here, so I just wanted to point out that it did exist. The reason it's not on a slide is it's not a way that we commonly use. A lot of the coded examples that you're going to see for Genero programming, if it starts crawling along a DOM tree, or if it starts using the DomNode or DOM document, in the old days when we first started allowing this manipulation to occur, people would go and you would use these DOM document and DomNode methods to search up and down our AUI tree and to locate what you're looking for. Since that time, we've provided very easy and short code ways to do it, like you see here. I'm in a current window. I have one line that lets me get that current window. I know what the name of my window is. I have a single line that lets me set the variable to that name. So instead of having to crawl through a tree, do a bunch of searches to try to get or find the window node, I can go directly to it. So I just wanted to put that out there. You'll see examples like that are a little bit complex, like at the bottom of your PDF on page 6, but people don't use them anymore because we provided simpler methods since that time. So the ui.Window class provides object methods. So once you have your handle, there's things you can do to that handle. There's methods you can run against that window. Now I want to take my highlighter here and I want to highlight 3 of these that I think you may actually use more. So for example, if you want to change the title of your window, you could use the setText method. So I would do w.setText, and it would use that window object and it would change the title. If you want to get the title of a window, I could use that w.getText. It would get that window title and return it in the string. The get form, if I wanted to get the handle on the form. So I've associated the window. I'm in a window. Let's say part of my programming needs me to know what form is in that window. I could use that get form to return a ui.Form object to show me what form is inside of my current window. Now I highlight those because those are 3 that I've seen used in code. I've seen these others used as well, but I don't see them used as much, largely due to what I told you about before. We had a method before where people would basically concentrate more on building the tree than thinking about just what is the simple objective of what I'm trying to accomplish. So they would do find node and get node to go and search for a node in a window and return a node from a window. You could still do a find node if I wanted to find, for example, a Vbox that had the name of Fred. I could use this find node to go and get a handle on that Vbox whose name is Thread. If I wanted to return the node for the current window, I could use this get node statement. And that would be if I wanted to do node processing. The 5th one down here, this create form. We used to have some complex examples about how you would dynamically create forms on the fly. So realize that that can be happened. You can go out there in your programming, create a form using this method, and then start using DOM methods to add objects to this form, to add the grid, to add the buttons, to add the fields, to add whatever you needed to add to make that form happen. I just don't see those being used as much. So here's a simple example of using a window method, object method, to change the title. So I define my window, define ui.Window. I do my open window statement. And here I use one of my 2 ways of getting that handle. I let it equal to current window. I'm in this window. And then I just do a call w.setText. And then inside of my quotes, I give it the new window title name. The ui.Form takes it, I guess, one child deeper. We have our window, and inside of the window we have our form. Here we have methods out there that allow us to interact with that form. We have this SelectByPath, which lets you do an initialization script for any form that you open inside of your interface or inside of your application. We'll have a slide that I believe we have a slide that talks about this one, so I will. Let me just flip and verify. We do, so I'm going to save it for that slide. And then we have a series of object methods here. The first 2 talk about setting a field visible or setting an element visible. When we talk about an element, we're talking about things like buttons. When we talk about a field, we're talking about the fields you put out there using table.columnName or using form-only.fieldName. When you ensure a form field is visible to a user, you're just saying it's not that it was hidden and now you're making it visible. You're making sure it is on the surface and that the user can see it. And the examples I've seen for using these 2 methods tend to deal with applications that have tabs in them. The field may be on tab 5 and the user may be on tab 2. If you say ensure field visible, it's going to bring that tab 5 to the front where that field is, so that the user sees that field. It doesn't guarantee that that tab is going to remain on top as the program continues. If you do something that takes you off that tab, then the field's not going to be visible anymore. But that's what this field visible and element visible mean. And I wanted to differentiate them for you from the concept of showing and hiding, which is something we're going to get to on the next slide. I can find a node inside of my form, giving it its type and giving it its name. I can get the node of the DOM node of the current form. And here you can see I can load action defaults, toolbar, and top menu at the form level. You know we only have one action default file, so if I want to override what I had for my window and load a new one when I bring up a form, I can do it here. I can give the toolbar I can get a form as a toolbar in addition to toolbars I may put out there for the menu. Same with top menus. And here's where we have the things about hiding or showing elements. So if I really just want to hide it or show it based upon conditions, I have the set element hidden and I have the set field hidden. So that's if you want it to appear and disappear off your form. Those are the two you would use. And then for my element, I can change the text, I can change the image, and I can change the style dynamically. And for a field, I can change that field style dynamically. So let's go and see some examples using these methods. So the first example we have up here, getting a reference to the current form used by the current dialog. So the point being here, I'm in a dialog statement. I've defined a form variable, and I've defined it as a ui.Form. The way I can get a handle onto that form, I can reference that form, is by letting msForm equal to dialog.getForm. At this point, I have a handle on that form, and I'm able to use my object methods. If I'm not in a dialog, I again have the same concept. I've defined my form variable, and then I let my form here equal to w.getForm, so it's going to get the form that's being used in my current window, and I know that because up here I set my window handle to ui.Window.getCurrent. So both of these were ways that I went out there and I got my handle on my form, which is going to allow me to use my object methods for that form. The example I chose for you here is the set element hidden. In this guy, I've gone and I've defined my window as ui.Window. I've defined my form as ui.Form. I open a window with the form. I go and get my handle on my window. I use that to get my handle on my form. And now that I'm in this form, I can do the form handle, the variable mrs.form or mrs_form dot set element hidden. I give the name of the element. In this case, it was a group that's holding the buttons. You'll see this in your lab. And then I can set the value equal to 0, 1, or in some cases 2. If you're setting it to 0, you're saying false, and that means it's going to be visible. If you set it to 1, it's going to be true. That means it'll be hidden. If you set it to 2, that's saying the element is hidden, but the user is able to make it visible. I don't see this used a lot with groups. I see it used more with tables and table columns. You may want a table array to appear, but to have certain columns hidden by default, but allow the user to open those columns if they think they want them. And the user would open them by doing something like a right-click on the table, and the right-click would inform the user that one of the options that they have is making those columns visible. So most of the examples we see have this set as 0 or 1. I just wanted to point out that and there are cases where you can set it to 2 and where it makes sense to set it to 2. Here's some more examples of changing an attribute of a form item. Again, we get our window and we get our form, or get our window handle, get our form handle. The first one here in the form, I'm going to change the text of an element. I give the name that I've assigned that element, and then I just provide it with the text. So I'm assuming this is a button, LB1. It's going to get now say new text. I can change the image, so it's going to my quit button or my quit action view, and it's changing the image to exit.png. It's expected that it will find this image when it looks down my image path directory according to what I set it up in that environment variable. Under my element style, it's going to change the style assigned to this LB1, and it's going to give it a style of my style. The next one is, so those were elements, so I know these are buttons or action views. This one is a field style. It's setting the field style. So here I expect it to have a field name, and the field name I expect it to have category.cat description. So it's a table.column, and I'm applying a style of int search, which, as we recall from yesterday, means we can probably guess that this is a text edit, and somebody has set up a style to have an integrated search. Under this set field hidden, they're doing state name. You'll notice that I'm not required to do table.column name. I tend to do it because it's very precise, and if somebody added a second state name somewhere on the form, I don't have to worry about that. Here it's setting it to 1, so it means that that's going to be hidden. Set element hidden, here it's taking LBT2, whatever that is, and it's also hiding it because it set it to 1. All of them, however, you know, it needed me to find the form and identify the form and then use that form as the prefix because these were all object methods. We talked about, or we had the slide about loading our UI components, our toolbar, our top menu, and our defaults when we talked about the interface. Here's just an example of loading them up for the form. Again, you can see that we went and we got our window object and our form. We got our window handle and our form handle, and then we used them. I call my form.loadActionDefaults, and again provide the name of my file, no extension, and I expect it to go and find it first in my current directory. If not there, it works its way down my paths. Same thing for the toolbar, same thing for the top menu. Okay, the next thing is to talk about my form initializer. So a form initializer, the idea behind it is you may have some initialization scripts or initialization routines that you want to run for every form that is opened within your program. And the way you can make that happen without coding it for every form is to have a default initializer. So with a default initializer, the first thing you do is you actually have to create the function, and the function you're going to pass in a form. So here I have a function called init, and I'm passing in a form. I'm passing in a form handle. So the form comes in, and then whatever you need to happen to that form, you write after that. So here they're just loading a common top menu across every form that is opened by this application. You've defined your function. One of the first things you're going to do before you start opening forms in your program is you're going to call this ui.Form.setDefaultInitializer, and then you're going to provide the function name. So that function name is going to map to the function that we've set up to be our initialization routine for all forms. You call it. It lasts for the life of your program, and it binds a callback routine for any form AUI node creation when you use an open window with form or display form statement. There's a note here to specify the initialization function in lowercase. So I guess we must do that. BDL syntax in general allows case-insensitive function names, but the runtime system needs it to be in lowercase letters internally. So specify the function, your initialization functions in lowercase. We did the dialog class yesterday, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Just remember that in order to use this dialog keyword, you need to be in a dialog statement. If you try to use it outside of a dialog statement, you're going to get an error. And these were some of the, I think there's some of the actions you'll probably use today. So if I want to set an action active within my dialog, I would use the set action active. If I wanted to set a field active, I can use the set field active method. Again, so this one I'm setting the field active for account.userid. The value is 0, so that means that it's going to set it not active, so it's going to turn it off. Here, set action active, my value is 1, which makes it true, so that means the action move 1 is going to be available. And that's enabling and disabling actions. Here I'm hiding or showing actions. So this is using our multiple dialog syntax, but I'm taking sr_1.insert. I'm setting it equal to 1, which means I'm hiding this action from the user. So the user is not going to be able to click on it. Okay, before I get into the combo box, I'm going to take a quick look over at my attendee list and see if anybody out there has any questions about what we've covered so far. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so let's go and talk about the next class, and this one most people use quite frequently, so it's the ui.ComboBox class. And the ui.ComboBox class provides a programming method for populating and interrogating your ComboBox objects. We're going to have class methods, and we're going to have object methods. The class methods, there's two. One of them is to get a handle on your ComboBox. So you've created a form. The form has a ComboBox on it. Inside of your program, you need to be able to refer to that ComboBox. That's where you're going to use this form for name class method to get your handle on that ComboBox. The second class method is a default initializer. So just like we had a default initializer for every single form that we opened, there's a potential to have a default initializer for every ComboBox form that you open. And we'll take a look at that as well. There's a series of object methods, once I have my handle, that you can use to either build your ComboBox or you can use to modify a ComboBox that exists. I'm not going to walk through this slide now because we're going to walk through examples that I think show this all off better. We'll come back to this slide after I walk through the examples. So the first thing I'm going to do if I want to work with a ComboBox is I want to get my handle on that ComboBox. I want to retrieve that ComboBox object into a variable, and as the application is, or as my little code snippet is going to show you here, I want to verify that that actually worked before I go and start to try to work with it. So in this code, what I've done is the first thing is I defined a CB, ui.ComboBox. I've defined my variable. And then I've grabbed a handle by saying let CB equal to ui.ComboBox.forName, and then I provide the name of the ComboBox I'm trying to grab. So whatever my form apparently has a ComboBox and the name is formonly.airport, I'm grabbing that, and now I'm pointing to that ComboBox. The next thing I'm doing down here is if CB is null, then let's get out of this because apparently my program is not working. I expected to find that ComboBox. It's not there. Something is going wrong, and in this case, I'm exiting the program. But you could handle it however you wanted to handle it. Let's see. I have a comment that has been written to me. ComboBox is one of those that has to have the name of the ComboBox in lowercase. If the form definition has a ComboBox that's in camel case, the ui.ComboBox.forName method has to have my ComboBox in lowercase for the name. Been bit by that before. Okay, so that's apparently we need to specify in here lowercase. Thank you, Mark, for the ComboBox name. I assume that that's a bug, but I don't know if it's one that is on the board to be fixed soon. So, but thanks. So enter in lowercase name here, and I'm going to make a note on my material so that I can mention that in future classes. I kind of reworked these slides last night and apparently left an old bullet point up here. So if you've printed yours out, this bullet point doesn't apply to this slide, but I think that'll be apparent as we read through it. So the purpose of this slide is to say you can load your ComboBox with hard-coded values. So if you put a ComboBox on a form, you have an option to add the items on the form. But let's say you just put a blank ComboBox on the form and you wanted your program to load it. Here's how we could load it with what I call hard-coded values. The assumption is somewhere in my program I've gone out there and I've grabbed my handle, I've grabbed my variable so I know what ComboBox I'm talking about. I can pass it into a function. I've passed it into this init ComboBox function. It takes that ComboBox. The first thing it does is it clears it out. It may have a bunch of old stuff in there, so it clears it out. And then one by one, it's adding the items. So in this case, I'm adding the name, and I'm adding the text value. So 1 is Paris, 2 is London, 3 is Madrid. And I could do this as however much I wanted to do in order to load up my ComboBox. And when I end function, it then said my ComboBox is now populated, and it returns from wherever it was called from. So this is a way to if you have a static list, you can create a method that then goes out there and loads them all from that static list. More likely, you will have a list that's kept in a domain table out there inside of it in your database. And those are where you want to load your ComboBox dynamically. So it's the same concept. We're going to pass in a ComboBox handle. Once we pass that in, we're going to clear it because we want to get rid of whatever was there. But then we want to have our SQL that's going to go out there and dynamically populate it based upon the rows in our domain table in our database. So I'm going to declare my cursor. I'm going to declare my select statement. And this example here is a very common one. I have a state table, and the state table has 2 columns, a state code and a state name. And that's what I want to populate my ComboBox with. So for my cursor into my ComboBox state code and my ComboBox state name, I want you to add the items one by one. And then it's going to go through the cursor until it ends. Once it ends, once the table is done, my ComboBox is filled, my function ends, and I return to my program. So you've built these functions. Where do you specify that these functions are going to take place? I typically say there's 2 places you're going to do it. You're either going to do it on the ComboBox item on the form itself, or you can do this set default initializer. What I see more commonly done is on the form itself. So they've given you the example here in the per file and in my form designer. So if I have a ComboBox value, underneath the properties, I have an initializer attribute, and that's where I would specify the name of the function I want to run to populate this ComboBox whenever this form is brought up. If I use per files, I still have the ComboBox being defined, and then I add the initializer attribute, and I provide the name of the function that I want to use to populate that ComboBox. Now, there's also this concept of a set default initializer. And this is saying for any ComboBox on any form in my application, I want you to run this initialization routine to populate it. You're going to see in your lab today why this may not be the world's best idea. But if you do want to do this, if you have one function that you want to run for any ComboBox that you have out there, you can use the call ui.ComboBox.setDefaultInitializer. Provide it with the name of your ComboBox initialization routine. And whenever we put up a form or whenever any ComboBox is being created, this function is going to be run for it. What you're going to see today in the lab, and I have a little smiley face next to my notes on this, is we had a form with 2 ComboBoxes. And we have, as part of your lab, we have you setting up a default initializer. So while it populates one of the ComboBoxes brilliantly, like we expect it to, it wipes out the defaults, wipes out what we had already set up for the other ComboBox, and it just doesn't make sense in that case. So in that case, we wouldn't want to have the default initializer for all ComboBoxes. We would probably want to go to the specific ComboBoxes and tell each of them what initializer we wanted them to use. Okay, so I said I would go back to our ComboBox class list. And so now that you kind of see how it works, you can get an idea of what these... Whoa, I don't know what that thing is. Back to Spotlight. Okay, so clear, we saw clears a ComboBox. Add item, we saw adds to a ComboBox. You can get a column name. You can have a ComboBox defined. I want to know what column it represents. You can return that to the program. You can get a count of the number of items that are inside of the ComboBox that you have the handle on. You can get the name or the text for a specific item in the list. And the list starts, the count starts at 1. So if I did get item name for 5, it would return the value of the 5th item in that list. If I said get item text for 5, it would return the text for the 5th item in that list. I could get the name of the table that the ComboBox is referencing. I can return the ComboBox tag value. I can remove an item from the list. If I want to remove item number 5, I would find out what the name was for item number 5, and I would use that name to remove that item. So the last part of this chapter is talking about the om package. So the om package has a series of methods that allow you to basically manipulate or move up and down the DOM tree, manipulate objects in the DOM tree, and that also allowed you to read and write XML. So if I was to divide this up into 2 different sections, I tend to divide it up so we have our om.DOM document, om.DomNode, and om.nodeList. And these are for the manipulating the objects in the DOM tree and moving up and down the DOM tree. I then have another set of methods that deal more with writing XML files. So XML reader and XML writer, it's stream reading in and stream reading out XML files. The SAX document handler and the SAX attributes are methods for manipulating XML elements and for writing XML filters. So they're dealing with XML file creation and XML file manipulation. Now, you may have reasons that you need to go out there and do XML file manipulation. This tends to be more specific than what I would call a general BDL application programming, but I have seen people use them and need them for things that they may be doing, especially when it comes to working perhaps with web components or web services. We've tried our best inside with 4Js to provide you with more user-friendly ways to go out there and work with your form objects, work with your window objects, work with your interface, than to go and manipulate and crawl up and down the DOM tree. But there's still some things that you may need to do that for. So the DOM document, DomNode, and nodeList still exist. We still give you methods. We still give you examples for them. However, I would always say look for the easier way first, and it's only when you don't have the easier way that I would go out there and start using these methods. So this is just a quick example to show you that you define your DOM document, you define your DOM node like any definition. So I create variables, d equals om.DOM document, d equals om.DomNode. In this case, they've created a DOM document variable. Let me get my spotlight. They've created a DOM document variable, and then they create a DOM document, and they give it a DOM document name. And then once they have that DOM document name, let's see down here, they had a DOM node. They wanted to pull a document element in, so they used this getDocumentElement method. Why they're doing this, I don't know, but this just to show you, I guess, how you can be using DOM nodes, how you use DOM documents and DOM nodes, how you can specify them. There's times we want you to go out there and get a DOM node. You can select a DOM node by using the SelectByTag name, a SelectByPath. You can use what we showed you earlier. If you have a window object and you want to find the DOM node of that window object, you can use a ui.Window.Find node. I would add to this slide a form object. If you have a form object and you wanted to find the node of that form, you would use the ui.Form.setFind node. So if you need to identify a node within a tree, there are methods out there that allow you to do that. Here are just some examples. We'll walk through these that just show you some of using some of this DOM manipulation. So in the first one, this first example, they've gone and they've defined the node. They've got a node list. They have a string and they have an integer. And then they're going to build the node list. So they're going through the DOM tree and they're building a list. And if a node has a tag name of form, so if it's a form, they want that node to be put in this list. And what they end up with is a list. And then for an index of 1, through this entire list, they're going to let the node equal to the list item. They're going to extract the text for that item, for that node. And then they're going to use the set attribute for the node to take that text and to convert it to uppercase. So the end result of all of this is it's going to go through all the form or all the nodes that are tagged as forms. It's going to get their text, and it's going to change their text using this function to allow that to change to uppercase. So if you have a need to change all your form names to uppercase programmatically, here's an example you could go and choose from. There's a slide up here. This is just talking about XPath Expressions. If you're using a SelectByPath, it ends up using this thing called XPath. I'm not really terribly comfortable with XPath. It's a W3C Standards. It's used by our SelectByPath method. I'm going to lowercase that select just because it's standard when I update this slide. If you want to know more about this, you could go through the W3C site if you wanted to read the details of exactly how XPath works. But we use a subset, and here are so we use the pattern matching of a slash, a double backslash, the asterisk, and then this @ attribute equal to value. So they show you an example on the next page. Here we're building that same node list. This time we're building a node list, however, we're using the SelectByPath. So instead of that select by tag name, they're doing SelectByPath, and then they give this XPath notation. So apparently it's looking for a window where the name has a gift certificate inside of it, or gift cert inside of it. It's going to come back with a list, and then it's going to use that list and cycle through it, and apparently it's going to take that item and it's going to change its window style to pop-up. So the purpose of this entire routine was to go through, gather a list of all the windows, then send that list through this for clause here to set the style for each window to become a pop-up window. Here they decided to use the SelectByPath instead of using a select by tag name like we used in the last example. Let's see. This one is a ui.Window.Find node, so we're finding a node within a window. On this guy, we've gone through and we've defined our window object. We've populated that window object, or we've populated that window variable. And then within that window, we've gone through and we've searched for a label that's known as customer ID. And we use that to populate our DOM node. So we've identified the node in the tree for the label that is customer ID. And then we're saying, if we found it, if pnode is not null, then I want to go and I want to change an attribute. I'm going to change an attribute of that node. I'm going to change the color equal to red. So this is a very simple example of going out there and using the DOM node to go find the node that represents the element we're thinking about in the tree. Once I find that node, I'm then using a set attribute to change one attribute of that node. So it'll change it in that node of the tree. Well, this is a simple example, just using, changing a color to red. You can think of any time you needed to change an attribute, you have the ability to go out to the tree, find the node in that tree, finding it using its name, which is an easy way to find it, and then using the set attribute to change that value. This one, a little bit more complex, I guess. This one, the purpose, they want to find the first Vbox that exists on a form. So they have a d.Form.node, a d.Box.node. They're passing in the form, so they found the form node elsewhere, and they're passing in that form node. Let me get my spotlight again. So they pass in the form node. They then let dbox equal to dForm.get first child. It's getting the first child of that form node. And as long as they found something, if it's not null, then they want to check the tag name and see if it's Vbox. If it is the Vbox, they're going to exit the while and they're going to return that node. So they found the node of the first Vbox. If it's not, they're going to go ahead and move down to the next node in the tree, and they're going to do this text again, and they're going to do it again and again and again until they find a dbox. They either are going to leave without a Vbox, or they're going to have been kicked out with a Vbox. So I almost want to say this is missing a little something here. Before I return it, I would probably want to check and see if I actually found a Vbox before I return before we just return a node. But you can get the idea here. So the idea is I came in with a form. I then went and I worked my way through the nodes inside of that form until I found one that met my criteria. And once I found one that met my criteria, I had that node. I could return that node back to my function. This last example is some of like building, when we talked about building a form. Before I said you could create a form. You want to add things to a form. How can you do things like that? And here's an example of that. So I have, I'm adding a label in this. I'm passing in a Dbox. So whatever my node is I'm passing in, I'm going to add to that node. I can see that it's a DOM node that I'm passing in, so it's a form or it's a grid. I'm not sure what it is, but it's passing in something. And then I'm letting that node, I'm taking it and I'm adding a child to it. So I'm adding a child in the DOM tree. The child is a type of label. So right now I have a label, and now I need to set that label up. So I have a whole string of set attribute statements here where I'm giving it its position X, position Y, its width, its text, its color, any attributes that I wanted to add that are relevant to a label. This is how I would dynamically add an element to a form or a grid or whatever on the fly. So based upon who they are, based upon a permission, based upon the work that they've done, you may want to add to your form. You can do that kind of thing by doing something like this routine here. All right, that's what I wanted to take you through about changing the UI dynamically. I'm going to look over at my attendee list to see if anybody has any questions about what we've covered so far today. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands being risen, so I'm going to go ahead and call the first break,